Well, good night, everyone. And I don't mean that in the good, usually when you say good night, it means like goodbye. And that is not what I mean here. In fact, I mean the opposite of goodbye. I mean hello. Except if I were to say good evening or good day, that's hello. But when you say good night, at least in English, that's kind of translated as goodbye. Well, I'm not saying goodbye, not just yet, not at least until 2 hours from now. And this is Unfound live for what is today? January 26th, 6th of 2026. So it's 0126 2026. Well, that's kind of tricky. All right. I just didn't notice that until right now. I have a fantastic show lined up for you. Not many topics tonight, but the ones I'm going to cover are going to take a considerable amount of time tonight. As you can see in the lineup, I want to talk about the 1999 disappearance of Paul Skiba, I think his name is, his daughter, and one of his employees in the state of Colorado. We're going out to nephew Charlie territory. Maybe Charlie, in your spare time, you want to look into this one. I also need to talk about this Carolina Parkway murder update. Big one, big update. And I need to discuss even further what that means for the rest of the cases, in particularly the two disappearances, of course, Keith Call and Sandra Haley, what it means for them. And then we have another Unfound update. Christian Balke-Thompson, some charges have been brought. Remains have not been found yet, but I will talk about that when I get to it. So, as you could tell, those three topics very important. The Paul Skiba disappearance with his daughter and employee, that is a unique one. I've known about it for a while. I came upon it within the last couple of years. I've never made an attempt to contact anybody, his family, but this might put it on the front burner. But that's going to be interesting. Of course, you know about the Colonial Parkway murders, and most of you remember Unfound's coverage of Christian Balke-Thompson, his disappearance. Must have done that disappearance at least 2 years ago. I'm thinking somewhere in there. As you are watching, or maybe you're just listening, you don't have to look at me. It's okay. Whether you're watching and listening, whatever you're doing tonight, please give this show tonight a thumbs up, share it. If you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, subscribe. Maybe you're just finding out about Unfound in the YouTube channel for the first time on this 26th of January of 2026. Hit the little red button down there in the bottom right-hand corner on the screen to subscribe. There are a multitude of ways you can support what we do here at Unfound. Patreon.com/Unfound podcast. Go there. You get some cool stuff depending on the level you sign up for. Hey, ending sentences with prepositions. You can go to paypal.me/Unfound podcast. You can hit the join button. By joining the channel, you get some things that other people do not, or get them early. Or as we are taking part in this live show tonight, you can hit the super chat button and contribute that way. Any one of those ways, anything you would do would be greatly appreciated. So let's see who's in here, and then I will get into the week that was. Nephew Charlie, good to see you. LaFord, hello. Any shoveling today, LaFord, or just yesterday evening as we were talking about during the think tank last night? Lori, good to see you. Glenn from Michigan, good to see you, Glenn. Love getting your emails. Who's Brian, I think. Hello, Brian. What's going on with you? I'm getting to know that. Amy, good to see you. D, what's going on? D, girl, I was struck at the start. Well, stuck at the start. Sorry to hear that, D, but you're in here now. And Fishing says, hey, Ed and the Unfound family. Hello to you, Fishing. So what has been going on with me? Had two big trivia win opportunities this past week, and my teams blew both of them. I wouldn't necessarily say that in the end it was total failures. But in both cases, if we get the final questions right, we would have won. And in both of them, we were not sure what the answers were, so we didn't put any points on them. In one, we got the question right, and we would have won. And the other one, we would have missed the question and then fallen even further down the standings for that night. So it could have been a week, one of those rare weeks where I would have been involved in two trivia wins. Just couldn't get it done. And it's two different teams, by the way. I am the only member of both teams, two totally separate groups of people. And, I think I played a pretty decent role, especially last Wednesday. In fact, last Wednesday, my team went perfect. We didn't miss a question, and then we got a little leery about the final question, and unfortunately, we guessed the right question, but didn't put any points on it. Dang, and then Saturday, like I said, we were like in second place. Had we gotten the right final question, we would have won. We didn't. We got passed up. We finished fourth. So could have been one of those really, really, really special trivia weeks. Didn't work out that way. And I'm feeling a little bitter about it. Not mad at any of my teammates at all. Just a little unlucky and unfortunate. But we'll keep at it. We got no choice. I'm into trivia. All of this and brains too. So, also, a lot of you got snow the past couple of days. Certainly my dad's area of Pennsylvania got hammered. Just snowing and snowing and snowing and snowing. He sent me a video and, he said he was going to try to send me pictures, but he sometimes has problems. But my buddy Brad, who lives in my hometown, sent me some pictures, and the snow was very, very impressive. I don't miss it for a second. But I will admit, if I'm in Pennsylvania, I want it to be below zero, and I want a foot of snow. What I experienced there, although we did get some snow when I was there back in November into December. It's those kind of like it's 25 degrees out and it's just really, really gray and windy. And those are the Pennsylvania days that are as boring can be. If I'm going to be there, I just want the snow coming down. If I'm going to be there, just give it to me. Just do it. But I really am not into that. And, the funny thing is, it did at least rain a little bit here today in Clearwater. It was kind of ugly for a little while today, and it was not warm. It has certainly cooled off. This past weekend was nice and warm. Today was a little chilly out. In fact, I went out to the coffee shop today. I was there for about 3 hours doing some work. And when I came out, I don't know, between 4 and 5, something like that, it had definitely cooled off outside. I was like, wow, how about that? So it has cooled off, and it's going to continue to cool off into the middle of the week. And it is kind of, I think, related to what has gone on up north. This is like the tail end of it at the, the bottom part of the United States. And I can hear the wind. The wind is blowing pretty well out there right now, it seems. But yeah, all of you with the snow and watching the picture, the videos, and everything else. Good luck to all of you. Good luck with all of that. All of you who choose to continue to live in those parts of the United States, you get a lot of respect from me. But I will not be living in any areas like that anytime soon. Hello, Rose. What's going on? Former guest of Unfound. Rose, everybody say hi to Rose, former guest. Hello, Joni. Cranky, what's going on? Greetings to you. He says, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. No, Cranky says, no snow here in SoCal, Ed. Yes. It might be the only two places in the continental United States that didn't get any snow, Cranky. And then if you want to say all 50 states, us here in Florida or the lower part of Florida, Southern California, and Hawaii. I think those were the only three parts of the 50 states that didn't get any snow. So we are special, Cranky. Hello, Mandy. Rose, what's going on? Good evening. Amy again. Another Amy. Yes. Hello. Yeah. All I got to say to the people from the north, your weather is drunk in my backyard. That's funny. D is out there in Oklahoma. Rosemary says no, and here in Arizona, but I do know it snows though in Arizona. Up there, you start getting up into Flagstaff. In fact, the one time I went through Flagstaff in my life, Rose, it was 1 degree above zero. That's a true story. The one time I drove through there was with my brother Brian. That would have been March of 1998. Can't believe it's coming up on 28 years ago. It was 1 degree. It was a good time. Pacific Northwest, no snow. D misses Tucson. Rose, not much. Nice and quiet. Not where I am at. Okay, Rose. Thank you. All right. In other news, this past week, today I got up. I was 179 pounds, but a couple days ago, for the first time in a long time, when I got up out of bed in the morning, I was into the 178s. So I'm excited about that. So slowly working my way down, but it's going to be a while. But there's going to be a lot less Ed to push around here come summer. Very, very, very sure. No fun. Don't misunderstand. No fun. But, I have to admit, I need these kinds of challenges in my life. I like giving myself challenges. Doing the podcast is a challenge. Trying to figure out what happened in disappearance is a big time challenge, a good mental challenge for me. The singing is a good physical challenge and mental challenge that I took on a couple years ago. I like to challenge myself. And so when it comes to getting back in shape, I was at the gym today. In fact, that was what I did first thing this morning. I, walked for an hour, 3.5 miles an hour at a 2.5 angle of incline. And then I did a good leg workout that I'm surely going to be feeling tomorrow. And so this whole thing of getting down to really good weight and getting some of my midsection to go away, that is another very good mental and physical challenge for me that I'm enjoying the fight, I guess you could say. So there's that. And I will continue to keep on this. And I would urge anybody else who wants to get involved to do so as well. I'm going to get down to probably a weight and a measurement that I haven't seen in probably 20 years. But I know I can do it. There's not much doubt. It's the patience thing. I know that I can eat the right things and everything. It's the patience. I'm not the most patient person who's ever walked this earth. So, but I've been patient so far, but that will be the real test. It's not, not eating the right stuff or going to the gym. I can do that, even though I haven't done that for a while. That's not the problem. It's just being patient with it before I, mentally drive myself nuts. Let's see here. Everybody, Charlie says over an inch in the Denver area, it's already gone. But Charlie, I saw the football game between Denver and New England yesterday. The snow was, the snow was coming down in barrels full. That's a little hard for me to understand. Rose, Joni, it's balmy here, 10 degrees where I am in Minnesota. That's funny, balmy. Actually warm considering. Once the mom moves out, I am cool the way I like. All right, D. Well, I'm not sure that means Moran. Jenny, took me entirely too long to figure out why your place is divided the way it is. It's a mirror. Yeah, it is a mirror. Jenny, yes, that is a mirror back there. Jenny, trying to figure out what is going on in the background of my place. Yeah, that is a mirror. In fact, on the other side of this mirror right here, where the paper is taped up the wall, those are like things that I always need to remember about singing and some things. On the other side of this mirror is my hot water heater and my air conditioner. Behind this wall with the big mirror over here, don't get me wrong. I realize with all of these mirrors, it looks like a strip club. Okay. I know. I realize that. In fact, that was the first thing I thought of when I walked in here. Wow, this is weird. But I don't think it's unusual. I think the reason they do this is to make these places look bigger than they are. I think, when they take pictures to market them, oh, look at, and it really disguises. Don't get me wrong. It's a nice size place. But behind this mirror over here, this wall right here, that's my bedroom over there behind this. And the door to get in there is right back there by my Pirates of the Caribbean poster picture that you might remember from my old place in Madeira Beach. So, yeah. Lots of mirrors in this place. And not to be too cheeky about this, there's actually an entire wall mirror in my bedroom too. I'm just going to leave it at that. Let's see here. Brian, good job on your exercise. Thank you, Brian. I'm working on it. Good for you too, Brian. It's blowing around. Well, I don't know. I was watching that game yesterday, Charlie, and it was just, you can barely see the players on the field. And the snow was absolutely, absolutely covered. It was, so that's weird. And I know you live in the area, so they only got an inch. That looked more like 8 inches of snow they got. So, okay. I am confused, Charlie. Rose, Brian, mirrors always make the room look bigger. Yeah, it does. Come on, Ed. It's your singing practice. It's for your singing in the mirror. I do actually use the mirror when I sing, a hand mirror, so I can see what my mouth is doing. Actually, I've been ordered to do that by my teacher now. It is weird, Charlie. So I don't know. That is weird. Those weird upper altitudes. And then one more thing, another challenge for me is, as you know, as I mentioned, I'm looking for another car, not another car, not a new car. I'm looking for a used car that has not been owned by me before. And I've narrowed it down. I'm looking at 2011 to 2014 Mustang GTs with the 6-speed manual transmissions. And I realize those cars are over 10 years old, and I realize there's going to be miles on them, but I don't want to be crazy with the miles. And in fact, I'm willing to pay more for a car with fewer miles on it. There are some, if I wanted to get a car with a Mustang GT with like 110,000 miles on it, something for a lot less money, I could right now today. But I'm being a little picky. I'm not in much of a rush. I've even resolved, even if I sell my car, I'll just go without a car for a while. It's not that big of a deal, really, being that I live in a city and I can Uber, Lyft, taxi. I could ride my bike. I actually can ride my bike to the grocery store where I shop. So that's not a big deal. But I've started looking. The big problem is that what I'm looking for, there's only one or two types of those cars in the entire state of Florida, if you can believe it. Even though this is southern state, and you can drive rear-wheel drive hot rods around all the time, unlike, with the snow and the rest of the United States is getting, there's really not a ton of them out there. And so I've been inquiring about a few cars, and there might even be some, the thing is this, I'll get on like Carfax or Auto Trader and I'll inquire about a car. Well, part of the information you have to put in if you want to inquire is your phone number. And so the past week, I've been getting all these calls from sales people all over the United States, New Mexico, New Jersey, Indiana. And I just want, and the thing is, when they call, I don't pick up. All right. I'm not, there's nothing that they can say to me on the phone that is going to rush me. So I just inquire, I email. It'd just be fine if they just answered my questions. They don't. They want to talk to me on the phone, and I don't want to do that. Well, the issue is that if you call me, and I'm not giving out my phone number here, if you call me, my answering, the message there is about me and the podcast. So I'm almost sure that every one of these salespeople who has called me and heard my message immediately is gone trying to figure out, well, who is this guy? And so some of them might be listening tonight. So I just want to say to all of them, I appreciate it. I'm not in a rush. I'm looking around. If you just email me back with some of the questions I have about the cars that you have a much better chance of selling me one of them. When you call, I'm not going to pick up. All right, I'm not picking up. Okay? I'm perfectly fine. I know maybe you're ordered to do that and you're expected to do that and all those things. I'm not picking up. I'm not picking up for anybody. Don't take it personally. I'm not. If I email you about the car that I see there and I have some questions because I've looked at the Carfax and I wonder why it's been sitting on the lot, even though it looks like a nice car, but it's been sitting there for 4 months, and I inquire about that, just answer the question. I realize I was a salesman for 4.5 years. It's been a while. But I'm telling you, if you just answer my, the questions I have about that particular car, that's going to go much further than you calling me just for the heck of it. All right. I'm a good guy, but I'm here in Clearwater. Most of you are like 1,000 miles away. No, I'm not coming in. I get these weird emails like, come in for a test drive. Yeah, come check that car out. You're in New Jersey. You see that my phone number is a Las Vegas phone number. And I even put in my message, I'm in Clearwater Beach, Florida, and still I'm getting these automated messages. Hey, come in and check the car out. It's not very professional. So this is what I've been going through the past week. But I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to pay cash for the car. I can afford it. I really don't care that much about the color or even the interior. But it has, it's a 12-year-old car. So it's not a new car, but, it has to have I keep telling myself, if I wanted an automatic, I could get one like that. Those are much more common, believe it or not. But I'm going with the 6-speed. I'm going to be patient. And that's just the way it goes. So if you're wondering, well, Ed, what are you in the market for? That is number one right now. The funny thing is, this time next week, it could be totally something different. But it's going to be a car along those lines. And if you're wondering, well, what else have you looked at and entertained? I've entertained like some used Audis from around that time, but not as reliable as Ford Mustangs can be. I've actually entertained the idea of even like 2008 to 2013 Corvettes, but just on the edge of affordability for me because I'm going to be paying cash. So if I wanted to go back to like 2006, 2007, it would be a lot easier. But in 2008, they go from the LS2 engine to the LS3 engine, and so they get more valuable. So I'd like to try to get one of those, but just on the edge of affordability. And of course, Corvettes come with their own problems. And what else have I looked at? Looked at Lexuses, used Lexuses, but they keep their value way too well. And for me to afford one of those, I'd have to go back 20 years, and I'm not doing that. So those are just some of the particular cars. I think I'm going to eventually be successful because I'm not rushing it, but it may take a little while, and that's fine. Hello, Michelle. What's everybody saying here? Yeah, weird, right? Yes. Charles, that's weird, Charlie. Weird. Sounds awesome. Mustangs are cool. Had a 65 Mustang way back in the 80s. Nice, Brian. Hello, Michelle. Not going to answer you. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to answer me, D. I hate talking to people on the phone. Whenever I want to get info, most places want to talk on the phone. I'm usually wanting a quote, but they want to call me. Rose, I know the feeling. I turned in late. What kind of car I had? 2011 to 2014 Mustang GTs with 6 speeds. Really, I would prefer a 2013 or 2014, but any one of those years would be fine. Tactical, I tuned in. Yeah, there you go. Oh, Mustang, great choice. I've had a couple. They're incredibly fun cars. Tactical, I've had 2 of them. I had a 90 Mustang GT, unfortunately, with the AOD automatic. Ugh. And then when I lived in Las Vegas, I had a used 89 LX50 convertible that I should have kept. It wasn't the greatest in condition car or anything. Really should have kept that. In fact, I can't even remember why I got rid of it. The air conditioning worked, transmission was fine and everything. I don't know. I just got a little bored with it or something. Once again, I got an automatic. It's so stupid. So I had that car like maybe 3 years. So I've had 2 of them. So that would be the Fox body. Ed needs a Harley. I do not. No, I'm not a motorcycle guy. The Cake, what's up? Get a hold of Arctic Fox. D says those 80 are worth big money. Yeah, if they're low miles and if they're not hammered tactical. Suddenly this has become a car show. I've had an 8005 Mustang, decent, terrible in snow. Yeah, well, I won't have to worry about that as I've already gone over, Cranky. So that's what I'm doing. So when I'm not working on Unfound and doing some of the background work that I'm doing for disappearances and everything, I've been going through Carfax and Auto Trader and Car Gurus, and I've been reading a lot about those year Mustangs and the things that can go wrong and the things that go right. The good thing is the engines, those Coyote 5.0s, have a very, 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 very good reputation, much better reputation than the engine I have in my car now. And it's not unusual for them to go like 250,000 miles, even though they're a high performance engine and everything else. Transmission's pretty good, of course, depending if they've been abused, if they're drag raced or whatever. So just going to be patient. Of course, my dad thinks I'm crazy, but that's not unusual. All right, let's get to the show tonight. And I think only appropriate to start with the Christian Balke-Thompson update that happened since we all got together a week ago. So Christian Balke-Thompson, if you're like, well, what disappearance is this? This is the one where he was with a woman, and the story is that she showed up with Christian's car at this guy's place, and then something happened, and the car got caught on fire, and then ended up burning this garage where the car was in. It burned that down. And then the fire department showed up and they put it out. Oh my gosh, this is this missing man's car. Remember that? Remember that disappearance? Some of you probably remember that now. That's that disappearance. So here we go. Out of Iowa. A Lanesboro, Iowa man faces first degree murder charge and the death of a Carroll man that happened nearly 6 years ago. Christian Balke-Thompson, 26 years old, was last seen in the early morning hours of May 2nd, 2020. On May 4th, a vehicle believed to be his was found burned in a shed in the 2200 block of 15th Avenue, 5 miles north of Carroll. His cell phone last pinged near that address. He was reported as a missing person to the Rockwell City Police Department. Investigators followed numerous leads in the years following, but Balke-Thompson has never been found. Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird and the Iowa Cold Case Unit announced on Thursday the arrest of Albert John Wolf, 33 years old. This is the guy who was burning the car, and it was his property where the building burned down. If you're wondering, that's the guy. Court documents said Wolf admitted to dismantling and cutting up Balke's vehicle, but denied knowing anything about his disappearance. According to court documents, a friend of Balke-Thompson said Wolf shot him and wrapped his body in a tarp before setting it on fire in a burn pit. Multiple searches of the property have not turned up any signs of Balke-Thompson. This arrest is a milestone in securing justice for Christian Balke-Thompson and his family, said Attorney General Bird. No one should get away with murder, and no family should have to wait for answers. The Iowa Cold Case Unit was created in 2024. Any Iowan who would like to submit a cold case tip on this case or any other, Jody Husentrutz too, but mine, that's in Iowa too, can contact the Iowa Attorney General's office at 1-800-242-5100 or coldcase@ag.iowa.gov. So ag.iowa.gov. All right. Rose says, I don't remember it. Well, you have to go back maybe and check that episode out before we get a new one comes out on Friday, Rose. Maybe that could be a suggestion. Tactical said, I'd listen to an Ed Car Talk podcast. You know what, Tactical? If I could get somebody like a friend of mine, like a good friend of mine, like Sean or Doug or Mike or Brad or somebody who wanted to do something like that, I'd be all for it. I mean, I'm a busy guy, but if I wanted to like co-host and they wanted to do a little more of the work, I'd be totally into that. As far as Christian Balke-Thompson, I think we have to be very careful here. What usually comes to my mind, and not just with Unfound disappearances, but many that Unfound is not covered. When it comes like, oh, somebody has gotten charged and the disappearance is 23 years old and everything. It's clear to me that nothing really regarding this has changed. Now, granted, it's not that old of a disappearance, especially in Unfound terms. This disappearance isn't even 6 years old yet. But it's clear to me that, at least publicly, none of the facts have changed. Christian Balke-Thompson is still missing. Whether he was burned in this pit or that's a lie or whatever else, it's obvious that he hasn't been found. And, you know, this isn't, we have to remember something. When we go back to that disappearance and it being featured when it was, being that his car was found burned out on this guy's property and the building got burned down and the fire department showed up and everything, they really didn't need a warrant to go over that property because they were already on it. There was a fire. The fire department got called. They were allowed to be on the property. Now, I'm sure some defense lawyer would really want to go through all of that and make arguments against the point I'm making. But surely it would be enough if you needed a warrant, you could say, hey, Christian Balke-Thompson is missing. This is his car on this guy's property. It got burned. The building got burned. It's obvious that this guy was burning the car. That is more than enough probable cause to get a warrant for that property to search it. Now, I forget how big the property is. But that's what they did back then, and they didn't find anything. So you tell me how this Wolf guy was able to burn Christian Balke-Thompson in a pit on the property so fast, that nobody even noticed anything. It doesn't seem very likely. Now I will admit, I forget, it says May 2nd and May 4th. So he was last seen in the early hours of May 2nd. The car was burned on May 4th. That's a couple days. I suppose if somebody really, 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 really put a lot of effort into taking his body somewhere on that property and really, really getting that fire hot and being patient with it and everything else, maybe that could get done. Maybe. But I think there would be telltale signs that it was done. Moreover, there's no way this Wolf guy could have predicted, he must be a total idiot, that he would try to do whatever he was doing to Christian Balke-Thompson's car and then catch the entire building on fire. So he would be burning Christian Balke-Thompson's remains with the idea, well, nobody's going to be coming on this property for a while. And so it's more likely then there would be residual evidence from it, but it seems there wasn't. So this is all a little hard for me to understand. And I don't know if this is, I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not sure this is exactly what happened. To me, when I read something like it says here, let me read. According to court documents, a friend, and I think I know who that friend is, and I'll say it in a moment, of Balke-Thompson said Wolf shot Balke-Thompson and wrapped his body in a tarp before setting it on fire in a burn pit. Did this friend only come forward now? Why did this friend wait almost 6 years? It just seems really, really, really thin. I'm not saying that Wolf didn't have something to do with his disappearance. I'm not saying this friend didn't have something to do with his disappearance. But what they're asking us to believe is that Christian Balke-Thompson went missing. He was over at that property. He got shot, wrapped up in a tarp, burned in a pit. And in the meantime, they went and burned his car. The police show up. The fire department shows up. They figure out it's Christian Balke-Thompson's car. They know he's missing. They have more than enough reason to search the property, which they did. And they didn't find this burn pit with evidence showing that a body had been burned there. It all kind of sounds unlikely. Now, maybe I'm giving the police too much credit. Remember, they did miss that. For Zoe Campos, they did miss, of course, totally different state. But they did miss that concrete slab in the backyard of Carlos Rodriguez. So maybe I'm just hoping for too much here. But I think this friend of Christian Balke-Thompson is actually the woman who was with him that night. And the way I remember it, I did not go back and check my notes for this disappearance, to be honest. Like I said, I remember the general facts. Nobody believed that woman's story back then. I just don't remember anybody really being, she seemed to have all the answers and she didn't have anything to do with any of it, even though she admitted she was the one that took Christian Balke-Thompson's car to that property. But I have no idea what she got. I have no idea what happened to him. So I don't know how far. the best thing I can hope is that they have more than this. But I think if they had Christian Balke-Thompson's remains, they would have announced it. But, I mean, they're saying here the body was burned in a fire pit. So if that's happened and it's all ashes, then they can't have any of it. I surely hope that if they're going to try to do something with this, that they have more than just a friend saying that Wolf shot him and wrapped him in his body. I mean, without any evidence of that, I mean, where's this going? Where's this going? How do we know this friend of Balke-Thompson, let's say this is this woman, even if it's not, how do we know this person didn't do it, is just putting it on this Wolf guy? So at least with the public information, this seems like it's far from over. They'll build their case if they're going to go through with this. Maybe they'll try to get a plea or something like that. But I will be interested to see, what other evidence they want to. Maybe they're just hoping, well, Albert John Wolf's a bad guy, and we want to put a bad guy behind bars, and this is the way we're going to do it. Not the way I would hope people would go about prosecuting people just because people were bad. Just because people were weird or bad or everything, we just can't throw them behind bars for, crimes they didn't commit. Because they got away with something, let's try to pin something else on them that they might not have done. I mean, we shouldn't be doing that in the United States. So try to keep an eye on this. Maybe by the time the next update episode comes out at the end of April, where I, of course, will talk about this again, maybe we'll have more information. Of course, if Albert John Wolf did it, I want him to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But having covered this disappearance, remember the reaction to that episode from a couple years ago, a lot of vagueness in this disappearance. In fact, I think, the most popular idea was that Christian Balke-Thompson might have overdosed or something, and she took the car to Albert's to kind of hide it. Or maybe, I think a popular idea was that he had something had happened in the back seat of the car, maybe overdosed and threw up or something happened. And then she brought the car to Albert to try to get him to kind of clean up that back seat. And he tried to use like a torch on it or something to clean it off or something, and caught it on fire, and the car caught on fire. Then the building caught on fire. I remember that being an idea when the episode came out, that he was trying to help this woman out of a jam, maybe covering up something, not necessarily murder, but covering up a death by overdose or something. And then the whole car got caught on fire. And, he was kind of like an accessory after the fact, destroying it. Maybe what could he get in trouble for? Destroying evidence or something? I don't know. That's what I remember people thinking back then. And there's nothing that I'm reading in this story. And of course, there are multiple stories that's out. They all basically say the same thing. Reading none of this changes my mind at all. They could be withholding stuff. Let's see what everybody's saying on this. Can you tag me on it, please? Tag you on the episode, Rose? You mean on you mean in Facebook, Rose? Is that what you mean? Tag you on that? Is that what you mean? Hello, Joan. How are you? Good to see you tonight. Thanks for popping in. Brian, was the car accident that set on fire? That's the way it was described. Was the understanding, Brian, from my guest. Yes. Or Dibberly, why? cover up evidence. It's always all for you to decide these things. All we know is the car got caught on fire. Rose, yes, possibly out of fear. Rose, concrete slab in the backyard reminds me of my missing brother's case. Okay, Rose. Head up. Hard to believe she doesn't know anything, right? Well, if this is the friend of Balke-Thompson, she's saying she does know something. But she's trying to do, she's talking about it like almost like it's in the third person or something. Like she was just an innocent bystander. She's just standing there and an Elber just shot Christian and she just stood there and did nothing. Can you see why this it seems unlikely to me? It certainly doesn't make any sense, but we don't judge things that way. Or at least I don't. I just think this sounds unlikely. Rockford, the murder story is more complicated than the death of Rasputin. Not buying. Okay, I think that might be the first Rasputin mention in all years of the live show. Hiding the car and destroying it doesn't sound right for someone who OD'd, but maybe that's just me thinking that. Well, it's hard to say, Rose. These are people whose minds might not be thinking right. That's why we don't talk about these things as far as logical and common sense. We have to put it in terms of people who live really weird lives, that kind of lives that aren't like ours. And we're trying to figure out what these people are capable of doing, which a lot of times is not logical. Yes, one told me to listen to. All right. Oh, all right. I'll do that. The best thing you can do, Rose, is right here on YouTube. Just do a search for Unfound and just put in Balke-Thompson, Balke Thompson, Thompson, and you will find it. I would suggest you do that on YouTube, Rose. That's my suggestion to you. So, is this, like it has unreliable witness could be saying anything she wants. Remember, they were on the property pretty quickly due to the car fire. Nothing found. So it just doesn't sound very solid to me. And I don't know how many disappearances that we've featured where charges were brought, then dropped. On the other hand, we have featured a few disappearances where before Unfound got to them, people were charged and then the charges were dropped. At least a couple of those, although the names of those missing people escape me right at this moment. But we've certainly covered a few like that where in the past, somebody or a group were charged and then the charges were dropped. Maybe we had was Joey Offit one of those? Maybe. But as far as disappearances, we covering them, then charges are brought and then charges are dropped. Not that common. I don't know if we've had any like that. I think that so far when charges have been brought in disappearances and Unfounded featured, they've gone through, even to the point like Alyssa Turney where that trial didn't go very well. I can't think of any right now where charges were brought and they were like, well, no, we don't have enough and dropped it. Maybe one of you can think of one. So maybe this will be our first or maybe second or third or something. It just sounds thin. But once again, if you want to go check that out, that's the disappearance of Christian Balke-Thompson. I'm guessing that's an episode. Let me see on the list. I'll just pull the list up right here and tell you which, in the grand scheme of things, what number that is. By the way, we are on number, and remember some of these, are 2 and 1. Tyler Johnson from this past Friday was 388. Christian Balke-Thompson was number, where is it? Is it back that far? I don't think it's, oh man, it is way back. 237. So it's like 150 disappearances ago. Oh my goodness. That would, now that I'm looking at this must have been at the beginning of 2023. This was the disappearance right after Jordan Carvalho's, which is one that has been resolved it also. And right before Paul Sanders, the young man who disappeared in Arizona back in the early 2000s. It was also right before Jennifer Perry when we went down to Marathon, Florida. Like I said, I think that started out 2023. And his mother, Michelle, Christian's mother, Michelle, was the guest. So that puts it in the timeline, and you can go try to find it if you've not listened to it, or you completely forget it one way or the other. Okay, let's move on to this. And this, I should probably get everything else out of the way. Spoke to John, friend of the podcast, John Lorden, today. And I'm very, 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 very embarrassed to say I got the time wrong. And I thought that we were talking at 11 a.m. Eastern when really we were supposed to be talking at 10 a.m. Eastern. So I went down and did my workout, and I just get up here about 10:15, and I get an email from him, to the effect of, "Hey, are we doing this, Ed?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, I missed the time." So I got on with him. Of course, I apologized. That is so rare of me to do something like that. You don't even know. But we did end up having a really good conversation, and I think I can officially say both John and I don't know what's going to happen. It's not, we've already agreed we're not rushing this. Both of us have more than enough work to do on other things. But let's just say within the next couple of months, he's going to do his coverage. I'm going to do my coverage of the disappearance of Haydar Abu Shakra. His last name is Abushakra. First name Haydar. I think he went by Harry, though. But his official first name is Haidar. And he was a guy in the car business in Connecticut. And he had been running his own shop, like a used car place, and didn't go so well. So he ended up becoming sales manager at a Toyota dealership. But he still had this building that had a garage and everything, and he was like renting it out to mechanics who wanted to work on cars there. And allegedly, he was having problems with some of these guys who didn't want to pay their rent. And the story is that he went to meet a couple of these guys at this building that evening, and he was never seen again. His car was eventually found at the place. It was parked there, but the driver's door was open. And these mechanics, when they're, asked about, did you have this meeting? We said, yeah, we had this meeting, and, it was fine. Nothing. We ironed everything out, of course. So on the surface, it seems like it's a pretty straightforward thing where it was a business deal gone bad, and these mechanics did something to Haydar. The problem is that there are a bunch of people in official positions and lawyer positions and political positions in that area who think something else went on. And of a bigger deal than just simply a business meeting gone bad. And it's been important enough that the federal government of the United States has been involved in some of this, and the keeping paperwork out of the public eye, and I could go on and on and on. There's a lot to do. And because there is so much, and John and I at the end of toward the end of 2025, he had brought up, we should do something together in 2026. And this coincided with him inviting me, telling me about, of course, this thing that's going on at Middle Tennessee State in May, where I'm going to be at that. And I came across this disappearance in my daily reading, and I ran the idea past John, and that's how we came to agree that this is the disappearance we're going to do joint coverage of. And it'd be very easy to go down a lot of different rabbit holes on this. You will eventually see, maybe you can even go see it for yourself before we get into the coverage. But a lot of things both of us have already discovered are not in the public sphere. And I just was going over it. It's like, well, this sounds like a good one for me and John to do. And he agreed. So we had a meeting about it, how we're going to go about it, and some additional people that I need to talk to. And he's kind of just leaving it to me, tracking these people down to talk to them and, getting recordings of these conversations and then giving them to him and me taking notes and everything. And, if he's fine with that, I'm fine with that. But there's a couple more people that I want to talk to before we start collecting the information and figuring out how we can cover this disappearance in the most thorough and detailed way, because there are going to be a couple items that are going to be controversial that even with Unfounds, all the disappearances that we featured, it's going to be a little bit of new territory for the podcast. So you can be looking forward to that within the next couple of months. Once again, Hadar Abishakra. But like I said, it's not going to be this Friday. It's not going to be next Friday. In fact, I will be surprised if it even comes out in February. But still. Rockford, if you were any later, he would have had to turn on the searchlight for you. Look at you, Rockford. All right. The Colonial Parkway murders update. And this is where I guess some people get to enjoy me, pointing out that I guess I was wrong on another one. But how many, once again, how many podcast hosts out there admit when they're wrong, when they make predictions and they're wrong? My perception is not too many. And in fact, I'm more than happy to tell you about all the ones I get right and the ones I get wrong. I think that adds a bit of integrity to what I do. And you all know that I'm not trying to be sensational. I'm trying to get things right. But, you miss once in a while. I wouldn't say I've totally missed on this yet, though. So, the Colonial Parkway murders have long cast a shadow along Virginia's coast, as the brutal murders of 4 couples in the 80s have remained unsolved for nearly 40 years. In 2024, there was a big breakthrough. Authorities announced a man named Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. He had been positively linked to the 1987 double murders of David Knobling and Robin Edwards. Remember, the adult with the underage girl. They were shot. They were found along the water's edge, as well as the murders of Teresa Lynn Spa Howe. Wilmer died in December 2017 at the age of 63 before he was charged with anything. Now, on January 20th, 2026, the FBI has announced that they have linked Wilmer to 2 more homicides: the murders of Kathleen Thomas and Rebecca Dowski. These were the 2 murders that people think started the whole thing. Remember, these were 2 women. Kathleen had been she'd been in the military, one in the Naval Academy, the West Point Naval Academy, and she had been in a heterosexual relationship, but she had come out as being a lesbian, and she and Rebecca were a couple. And what happened is they were out in maybe they were going parking. Still don't know if we know all the particulars, but they ended up both being stabbed to death. And whoever did it kept them both in Kathleen's car and tried to push the car into the river. Was unable. The car got stuck, and then the killer tried to light it on fire and was unsuccessful doing that. And so the car just sat there. Eventually, of course, they're found. And all these years, almost 40 years later, we didn't know who did that. And then, of course, we had David Knobling, Robin Edwards. We have Keith Call and Sandra Haley, which I'm going to eventually get to. And then there were the 2 people who were murdered much farther north of all of this? Well, through DNA, they've discovered that this Wilmer guy killed Kathleen and Rebecca as well. Kathleen Thomas Rebecca Balke began dating in the summer of 86. The couple was last seen by witnesses on October 9th of 86. 3 days later, Kathleen's car was found in an embankment near Virginia's York River off the Colonial Parkway. Kathleen and Becky were found in the car. They had been strangled and stabbed to death. Importantly, no rape. Neither of them were raped. Thomas was a vibrant young woman known for her compassion, intelligence, and close relationships with family and friends. Balke was a talented musician and college student with a promising future, remembered for her creativity, kindness, and love of music. Their lives were tragically cut short, but they were never forgotten by the investigators who continued to pursue justice on their behalf. Now, you should know, going back, just so, once again, so nobody can say I'm trying to hide my flaws or hide my mistakes or anything like that. With David Knobling and Robin Edwards, the adult guy in his 20s, and Robin Edwards like 14 or something. They were parking, and somebody seemingly came upon them, marched them off into the woods by the river, shot both of them, and then they were in the river. They were found. I had thought that, I'd made the prediction, although it was just, there was nothing factual to back it up, that I thought, well, hey, 20-some-year-old guy with 14-year-old girl, and David had a girlfriend at the time who I think might have been pregnant. And I thought, my first choice would be somebody in her family did it. Knew what he was doing or was following him, suspected that he was cheating on, his girlfriend, and followed him there and just got ticked off and killed both of them. That's not a crazy idea. Certainly is happening all the time. But we now know that that's not true. It seems that Wilmer came along just randomly, happened upon them, marched them off, and killed them and shot them. It does seem the same thing happened with Kathleen Thomas and Rebecca Balke. I don't think anybody's claiming that this Alan Wade Wilmer guy knew either of these four at all. And so it seems that to start this spree off with Kathleen and Rebecca, he just came upon them cruising on, doing what he was doing, and came upon them and killed them. I don't think he cared that they were lesbians or anything else. All that I've read is that he did have a reputation for harassing people who would be parking along I guess this is the popular thing to do in that area, kind of Lover's Leap type of thing. And he did have a reputation of harassing these people. And this is why, though, back at the time, now you should know, he was questioned back in the 1980s. So investigators were on the right trail, but with no scientific evidence. And so I'm going to continue. So if you want to know, to remind all of you, what was my prediction for Kathleen Thomas and Rebecca Balke? Well, I thought that being the Kathleen Thomas, had she been married before, maybe just had a boyfriend. And I was told that this boyfriend was very fundamental in his religion. Let's just put it that way. Could he have been stalking Kathleen and, maybe knew what she was doing and followed her and Rebecca to that spot and killed them. Once again, not an unusual idea I have. They're not some crazy out of left field idea, but it seems that I was wrong on this one as well. Now you should know, I think a lot of people did not think those four murders were connected. Obviously, scientifically, we know that is now true. So, let me move on here. It says, had Wilmer been alive today, the evidence developed through this investigation would have supported federal prosecution. Dominic Evans, special agent, for the FBI. I'm incredibly proud of it. All right, so everybody's kissing each other's butt in that comment. The press release also expressed gratitude to Kathleen and Rebecca's families. You remember that Kathleen Thomas's brother Bill has been hosting a podcast for quite a while now. I made an effort to interview him for when Unfound did its own coverage of the Colonial Parkway murders, mainly concentrating on Keith and Sandra's disappearances. Bill and I never could link our schedules up for him to appear. Unfortunately, I think that would have added something to it. I did my best. So they continue. We hope today's resolution brings peace and a measure of closure to those who have endured years of uncertainty. The department stressed that investigators' work is not finished. They will continue to actively pursue unsolved cases related to the Colonial Parkway murders. If you have any additional information related to the Colonial Parkway murders, please contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, CALL-FBI, or go online at tips.fbi.gov. So of the 8 that are considered to be the core of this murder phenomenon, 4 of them have been solved. And so what we have left are the man and woman who were murdered. They found near a rest area far north of Colonial Parkway. And then we have the disappearances of Keith Call and Sandra Haley. And of course, being that Unfound is a disappearance podcast, back with that coverage, mainly concentrated on that. And if you remember, I interviewed, people in both Sandra and Keith's families for that. And if you've not listened to it or forgotten, please go back and check that out. So what does this all mean for the disappearances of Keith and Sandra? Now, I should state that Keith's car was eventually found not far, within a couple miles of where Kathleen's car with Kathleen and Rebecca in it. Not far, a couple miles. Remember, though, this happened a couple years later. They were murdered in 86. Keith and Sandra went missing in 88. And to remind you, this was the first date that Keith and Sandra and all but were on. But to tell you the truth, I don't know how much of a date it was. You might remember that Keith had a girlfriend who I've spoken to, by the way. And coincidentally, she lives here in the Tampa area. I've never met her in person. But, it was kind of like one of those friends things. They were on a break. But I specifically asked her a couple years when I talked to her, did you think that you and Keith would be getting back together? She said yes. So what kind of date was this with Sandra? Hard to say. They knew each other. They went to school together. I think they had a class together. There was this party or something. He had asked her to go. They went to the movies, then went to this party, and they disappeared after that. If you also remember, the big question mark, the thing that got my attention in their disappearances was that who was at the party that night? A guy that Sandra had dated, but they had dated secretly in high school because they were of different races. Sandra was white. This guy was black. And it was not clear to me that they were done with each other. That's the way, of course, I didn't know any of these people. That's the way it was described to me. That I don't think any would have been, just like Keith and his, taking a break girlfriend, she thought that they were going to get back together. I got the idea that a lot of people thought Sandra and this guy would be getting back together too. And so, and there were allegations, well, maybe they got pulled over by a fake cop. And, both of the families of Sandra and Keith explained that they could see no reason that Keith and Sandra would have ended up on the parkway where his car was eventually found. Remember that almost all of their clothes were found in the car. Maybe there was like a shoe missing or something like that. And that wasn't on their way home. The car was found parked right next to the highway. So let's just say something clicked. They're going out, they go to this party. She sees her guy and she figures, you know what, I'm really just not into him anymore. And man, Keith's a really cool guy, really good guy, interesting and everything. And something just clicks. They go back out to the car and they start, feeling like, hey, maybe we should be doing adult things. It's hard to understand. It's not impossible, certainly physically possible. It's hard to understand that they would go up there. And did they really go do that park? Were they really going to stop there and do things in the car that was like just a few feet from the Colonial Parkway with the cars going by? It seems unlikely. As all of us are adults here, we all know, maybe we've gone parking once or 100 times in our lives. You don't go where cars are whizzing by. You go by, go down some dirt road or something like that. So this is why, their families, and I think they're making good choices here. I think these are good ideas. It wasn't on their way home. They didn't think that this thing that they were doing this night was that romantic. I think the impression was that Keith and Sandra really not, they might have appeared when they stood together. Maybe they looked right together, but I don't know how much they had in common. It wasn't on the way home, on and on and on and on. So they just had a hard time understanding why his car was there. So the idea was that, well, the car was staged and somebody left their clothes in the car. And so you have to start going through a scenario where, and of course, their clothes didn't have any blood on them. There was no slash marks, no bullet holes, nothing like that. So what exactly went on? And we have to remember that they went missing, I think, in April. And so it's not like they went up there and got naked to go take a dip in the river. Either the river water, would have been freezing. It's night. They could have easily gotten taken away. That surely did not happen. So what exactly are we talking about? So I think, of course, right now, there's a huge movement toward, well, I guess this Wilmer guy killed Keith and Sandra too. And I can see why people are doing that. But you do have to admit, then we also have to start thinking about, well, did he like perfect or something? And that does happen. Of course, as killers kill more, they kind of refine their abilities, I guess. But we have to remember, Kathleen and Rebecca slashed. David and Robin shot. So totally different. I think this was one of the reasons that, just generically, that people had a hard time seeing them as always the same person. And the murders that happened up in the rest area in 1989, I forget how, I think they were shot, but I think the bodies were so decomposed, I don't know if they could ever tell. Maybe there was some cut marks on bones, so maybe they got stabbed too, hard to say. So those remains were found, so why haven't Keith and Sandra been found? And how exactly did Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. run into them? It could very well could be that they went up there and he happened upon them. I know that's going to say, well, there it is, Ed. Well, then what exactly happened? He pulled up. Did he pretend to be a cop? Did he threaten him with a gun? Take your clothes off and jump into the water? Who's going to do that? Who's going to do that? It's death. You jump in the water, it's death. It's dark. You have better odds like running off, and there's woods all around and everything. You have better odds getting away that way. But it's obvious no one was shot there. There would be blood everywhere. Nothing like that was there. So once again, what are we talking about? Well, it must have happened somewhere else. Maybe they got stopped. Okay. See, I have to admit, I realize that, and I realize that I've already gotten 2 of these pairs wrong. But I will admit, the odds, despite Wilmer being proven to kill these other 4 murder people, the odds say still that he had nothing to do with Keith and Sandra's disappearances. Now, I know, of course, do they have any DNA? Now, I mean, how much did they keep of their clothes? And of course, the car would be useless maybe at this point, if it's even still around. I forget what they did with it. Now, granted, if they find Wilmer's DNA on something that they kept, then there you go. I mean, even if it's not blood or something, anything that would be connected to Wilmer, if it ended up in the car or one on there would be no other way to explain it. Other than, yep, he encountered them that night and something happened somewhere. But outside of that, maybe I'm just stubborn. I'm still not convinced Wilmer had anything to do with these 2, with their disappearances. The thing is, for the other more murders that have been solved, it's exactly what we thought, even though we might have gotten the person wrong. It was very obvious from the scenes what happened. Somebody came upon Kathleen and Rebecca there in their cars, surprised them, murdered them, slashed them, and everything. It's just as everybody thought. It's just now we can put a name with it. With David and Robin, same thing. From the moment somebody happened upon the truck there, and then on their bodies, it was fairly obvious what happened. We just didn't know who did it. With Keith and Sandra, you really, really have a hard time putting it together. Even if you want to, believe that Wilmer did it. And because of that, I think that what happened there is still very, very, very up in the air. And I will admit, my money is still on the ex-boyfriend who encountered them at the party, because I'm gonna continue to say it. Keith and Sandra did not end up at that party by accident, and they just happened to run into her ex-boyfriend. That did not happen by accident. And once again, I don't care, but I'm a straight guy too. And when not that I don't think that I've ever been in that position, but here's what I think I know for anybody listening out there, all of you youngsters. If you go out with a woman and she says, "Hey, let's go here," and you happen to run into one of her exes there, that wasn't a coincidence. I don't know much about women, but I know that. And so that's why my money is still on that. And I know his alibi was checked out and everything. At this point, when it comes to what police believe and say and everything else, totally reject all of it. They'll say anything to cover their butts. And you have to remember, I'm not mentioning his name. His name is out there. You can find it. This guy was a person in the community. Even though he was still in high school, he was famous. And there might have been motivations because he had such a good reputation. There might have been, to not maybe investigate him as much as should have been done. So let's see what everybody is saying about this. Brian says, sounds like the Son of Sam murders. Oh, killing couples. Yeah, I guess. Brian, DNA now is so far advanced compared to 20 years ago. It is, if you have any. Once again, it only works if you have it. And then Rockford says, I'm with you and Colin Haley. It's about their victimology and not the location nor the surface characteristics of the crime scene. I agree. And we have to remember, given that already two pairs of murders had occurred, even though they didn't know who did them at the time, you can see how somebody who was familiar with the area might want to make it look like that killer got to Keith and Sandra too. Which, once again, not a very uncommon thing to do when it comes to crimes. Especially since this was all so high profile back then. Now, simply, well, how did Wilmer get away with at least these 4 murders? How did he do it? Well, remember, he was on their radar. He had a reputation going around and, like I said, harassing. He had a personalized license plate. They knew him from the area. He was questioned, and you should know, he passed the polygraph concerning Keith and Sandra. Now, we know polygraphs are just a tool. It's not science. But I think now we can see the reason these were so difficult to solve is because they were random. Even though the bodies were there, there were forensics left behind. The bodies were found. They knew the method of death. They had the crime scene right there. It's not alleged that they were murdered miles away and taken to that location. Just all of that. The reason this was tough is because it was random. Wilmer seemingly did not know any of these 4 people at all. Stranger on stranger crimes are the toughest. Each one of the victims had private lives that could bring on violence, as I just stated. And this is where my mind went a couple years ago. Of course, with the women, could it have been a hate crime? Somebody who hates, lesbians, gay people, homosexuals. Could have been, or it could have been the ex-boyfriend or somebody else close to them. Didn't like it. So obviously, though, now that we're also finding out some public info had been withheld as well. So just have some more notes. Keith and Sandra, Wilmer passed a polygraph regarding them. Yes, he was a suspect back then for the reason, like I said, it looked like Keith and Sandra out there. That's where the car was. He was a guy who had been called in because he was harassing people. Well, it turns out he was more than just harassing people. But once again, there's no proof that Keith and Sandra are out there. The car was there. And as we've learned many times on Unfound, just because a car is someplace doesn't mean the owner of the car put it there. Reminder, families denied Keith and Sandra would have been there, and it's not on their way home. And in fact, it's well out of the way. The way home, the car was found next to the road. I still think the ex of Sandra, or maybe they were taking a break too, is a better choice. And the odds, I think, agree with me. But here's what I think is going to happen now. Every crime that's unsolved in the state of Virginia, they're now going to try to connect to this guy, hoping they can solve all of them with one swoop, because that's what police do, looking to take the easy way out. That's surely going to happen. And obviously some justice is not going to be served because of it. And you should know, once again, I'm in the prediction business, and I don't mind being judged on my hits and my misses. So, and I don't know if anybody else out there is staking their reputations on making predictions and saying whether they're right or wrong. I don't mind doing that because I take this seriously. I think that's what serious people do. Rockford, random, and yet he was in the file, right? If so, there's a lesson to keep in mind for other cases. Rockford, I think that we see that a lot. Once again, I'm not a serial killer guy, but my perception of these types of crimes where, the police are looking through files and, it does seem to me a lot of times they do interview the guy who did it. It's just not of, and even if they don't know it, that they do in their process, of canvassing and everything. Sometimes, a lot of times they do run across the right guy. It's usually a guy, even though they don't know it at the time. And, I'm sure there are exceptions. Maybe BTK is an exception. Was Ted Bundy an exception? Maybe. Of course, with Jeffrey Dahmer, it's very famous that some guy escaped him and the police brought the victim back to him. So it is interesting. And I, once again, I realize why people are going to say, well, Wilmer must have killed Keith and Sandra. I just still don't think it's obvious. You're going to really, really have to explain to me how you think it went down then. What exactly happened there? That the clothes, for the most part, end up inside the car with no bullet holes, no slashings, no DNA, no blood, nothing. And somebody dumps that car there. I mean, seemingly Wilmer worked on his own. He didn't have an accomplice. What did he do? Dump the car there and walk home? Somebody's really, really, really going to have to sit down and go through the step-by-step of this for me. They're going to have to try to really teach me something. Hello, Cherie. Job says hello. Everybody say hi to Cherie. Ink and Inning, say hi to Cherie, who still has the wrench there. Okay, let's finish up tonight's live show with the disappearances of Paul Skiba, his daughter Sarah, who was only 10 at the time, and his employee Lorenzo Shivers, Chivers. They all went missing on February 7th of 1999. Let's get into this. This is the one I'm analyzing, and I only have 33 minutes to do it. It's going to be a little tough. Paul, Sarah, his daughter Sarah, and Lorenzo. Paul had a moving business, and Lorenzo worked for him. This was on a weekend. Paul had custody of his daughter Sarah, and Paul and Lorenzo were going to go make a move with one of Paul's trucks, and Paul took his daughter along. So set this up, big moving truck and like a box truck. All three of them are in it. They go to this move. Of course, 10-year-old, I don't know how much she's going to be able to help. But they go do this move. They disappear after that, even though the truck ends up back at the business. Let me read this to you. And once again, this is in Westminster, Colorado. Charlie, do you know this area? Westminster, Colorado. And this happened on February 7th, 1999. And you should know, I checked the Colorado newspapers at the time. No coverage of any of this. So on the day they went missing, Sarah accompanied her father, Paul, who owned the Tough Movers Company in Westminster, on a job along with his employee, Lorenzo. The three were last seen in Morrison that evening. Sarah was reported missing by her mother the next day after Paul failed to return her home from her weekend visitation. At this time, it was discovered that Paul and Lorenzo were also missing. So he's supposed to bring her back that Sunday. He doesn't do that. She calls authorities, and then through doing this process, they find out that Sarah, Lorenzo, and Paul are missing. The moving truck they used was located back at the Tough Movers lot. Subsequently, it was eventually discovered, but not until, you believe it, a week later was it discovered to have multiple bullet holes in it. So seemingly they went and did this move. I don't think there's any allegations that the move they were making in Morrison, anybody there has anything to do with the disappearance. Seemingly the three came back from this move to the business, and something happened there that involved gunfire. There were bullet holes in the side of this truck. There was blood evidence, as well as a portion of a human scalp near its windshield, I guess on the inside. not on the outside of the truck, on like the hood or whatever, on the inside. So a piece of hair with skin attached to it was on the dashboard of this vehicle. I'm wondering if any of you ever heard of this. See, this is why it drives me nuts how so many podcast shows out there only cover the same 20 disappearances. To my knowledge, I don't think anybody's covered these disappearances at all, to my knowledge. Charlie says about 40 minutes north of me. Thank you, Charlie. And like the metal extension ramp for the truck was also missing from the lot. So you know how like a U-Haul truck, they have that ramp so you can wheel up stuff in. That ramp was missing from this truck. Paul had told friends the week before the disappearance that he questioned if he had actually fathered his girlfriend's child and said he would often come home from work to find her still in bed or partying next door with a neighbor, leaving Sarah to take care of the baby. Paul also mentioned his plans to kick the girlfriend out of his home and sue for full custody should a paternity test prove the child was his. Sarah spent the weekend of February 5th, 1999 with her father, Paul. That's when the disappearance happened. So on Sunday, February 7th, Paul's mother, Sharon, received a call from the girlfriend claiming that Paul did not return home that day from a job he scheduled with his employee, Lorenzo. Sarah accompanied both on the job, like as I've already described. And that evening, and the Tough Movers store was located at the 72nd Avenue and Raleigh Street. The three were last seen at approximately 6 p.m. in Morrison. At 6:22, Sarah made a call to her mother. When Paul did not return home, Teresa phoned the police department, but stated they did not take her seriously, after which Sharon, the mother, placed a call regarding Paul's absence. Sometime later, Michelle, the girlfriend, phoned police, notifying them that Sarah did not return the mother of Sarah called police saying that he did not return her. On February 8th, Lorenzo's son, the employee, called his mother and told her that his father did not return home. The immediate aftermath, on Monday, February 8th, Jerry Bybee, another of Paul's employees, arrived at the store and noticed that the company's large moving truck was parked in an unusual place. This is the one that ended up having bullet holes in it. The employee recalled Paul was a neat freak, anal about everything. So I'm thinking, I can't wait to hear why the truck's parked like that, because Paul would have a story. The employee also noted that the lock on the front gate of the business was different. So there was like a gate, a fence around this business, and it had a padlock or something. The lock, when this employee got there Monday morning, it was a different lock. It was a new lock compared to the one that had been there on Friday. Interesting. So weird. After Paul and Lorenzo did not arrive at the store that day, that Monday, the employee called police. 3 days later, so police still not doing anything. On February 11th, so like 4 days after the disappearance, law enforcement entered the Tough Movers lot with the employee assisting them. The employee noted a puddle of motor oil partly covered with a piece of plywood in the van lot. He later stated that he felt the investigating officer destroyed more evidence than he was willing to look at. On February 13th, a week later, Paul's friend Rich received a phone call from the girlfriend of Paul, notifying them that Paul, Sarah, and Lorenzo were missing. The friend stated this was the first he had been made aware of their disappearances. That afternoon, a week later, the friend and his wife met with Paul's mother, Sharon, at the business. They climbed over the fence to get inside. It was only then that the bullet holes were it took them a week to find the bullet holes in the truck, even though police had been on the property just a few days before that. What a disaster. Yeah, they in the truck. The exterior of the truck also had what appeared to be a large blood stain and a chunk of what appeared once again to be this human scalp. So police were on the property. They missed the scalp. They missed the bullet holes. They missed the blood stain on the truck. Embarrassing. This is horrible. So finally, 10 days later, a vehicle belonging to the car that Lorenzo drove to work that day was still missing at this time. It was eventually discovered parked in an apartment complex in Westminster, several blocks from the business. Then 20 days after the disappearance, the vehicle belonging to Paul, the car that he drove himself and his daughter to the business, his business, it was eventually discovered in an apartment complex at 3129 Arkansas Avenue in Denver, so even farther away. The girlfriend claimed on TV that Paul was killed by drug dealers who rented parking spaces from the Tough Movers lot and whose vehicles he had recently had towed. So, given the evidence, what it seems like happened was that these three went to this job. They came back. It seems that some or a group were waiting for them there. So they pull the truck back in. People are waiting for them there, and seemingly a gun battle erupted. I don't know if Paul or Lorenzo would have a gun, but certainly the killers did. And seemingly shot all three of them. And of course, there's a scalp, there's blood, there's bullet holes. That is the murder scene. Now, of course, what's weird is this is a disappearance case. So seemingly after at least, and you should know when they tested the blood, this blood stain, it was a mixture of Paul and Sarah's. They were both hit, probably most likely killed. And we have to believe Lorenzo's in on this as well as a victim. So this is a murder scene, but for some reason, the killer or killers took the bodies away. Very, very unusual circumstances. Let's see here. D says, we have talked about this case on my channel. All right, have you? News to me. Everybody saying hi to Sheree. D, yes, I know. Talk about it. It was a question. Okay, I don't remember that. D, sorry. Rockford, Pat Brown just did a 2 or 3 hour episode on this, but I haven't gotten to it. Yes, yeah, see, that shows how much I know. I'll move it up to the list and report back. Yeah, do that for me, Rockford. Brian, maybe Paul put a new lock on it to keep someone out. Very interesting. Who may have threatened to do something on his property. Good thinking, Brian. I like that a lot. And Rosemary's thinking the opposite, that one of the killers did it. No offense to you, Rose, but that does make sense. If he was having problems with people who were renting space on his property, if he put a lock, yeah, they pull up the lock and it's an ambush. The gate's locked. They have to pull up to get out. He gets out. Boom, 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 boom. And the bullets start flying, or at least they stop to open the gate and these people stop them and commandeer them, get in there, and then the murdering happens inside the fence line. Yeah. Right. It's so weird now that I'm hearing other people have been talking about this. What are the odds? Because it's been 27 years, and then I guess Pat Brown and myself covering it within a few days of each other. I mean, what are the odds? Who would have thunk that? Because it hasn't been in the news. I came upon it, like I said, I've known about it for a little while, but picking it to analyze tonight was completely random. And so that's so weird, Rockford. I don't know. Okay. So, like I've already done, I think you have to visualize this. Now that I've described it, can we close our eyes and really visualize, just like we try to do, like I tried to do with Keith and Sandra? Hard to visualize. This one is not hard to visualize. That they come back, the gate's locked, it has a new lock on it, people waiting there, they're all ticked off. They commandeer the truck or something. They all go inside there. The bullets start flying. These people get murdered. Now, you should know some additional things that are not in, that I didn't include in this. There were witnesses that said that this truck that got shot up seemingly left this lot 7 or 8 times that night. I don't know what to make of that. We know about eyewitnesses and things like that. Are we sure that they saw 7 or 8 different times, or was it 3 or 4 people seeing the truck all leaving, and then it like multiplies or something? So just because 4 different people saw the truck leave the lot doesn't mean it left 4 times. It might have only left once. So I'm open to the idea of that. There's nothing that I read that tells me that anything was stolen. I mean, it's a moving truck. You think, well, somebody's in there. Maybe there's valuable things to take, maybe equipment or whatever else. I didn't read anything about that. Now, yes, the cars were taken. I guess they were stolen, but they were eventually found. So what would they be doing with the truck? 7 or 8 times, that's a lot of stuff, but there's nothing ever written that anything was stolen. So not sure what to make of that. We also have to start figuring out, well, if they were waiting for them, to pull up, and that's what happened, why did they bother taking their cars and dumping them? If they all showed up in a couple cars, why couldn't they just leave with those 2 cars? Just throw the bodies in the back and take off. Why? I mean, once again, why not just leave the bodies there? This is something that I bring up sometimes. Why are bodies hidden? If we were to think that some of these disappearances are murders, we have to start thinking of all the reasons why, if there's murders, why weren't the bodies just left where the people died? So for this, we have to think about that. Why didn't they just kill them and just leave them there? Now, maybe you think, well, DNA or something like that. Well, yeah, but I would say also, though, that it seems very likely that whoever murdered these 3 is connected to that property in some way. Of course, the problem is we have 27 years later, 25 and a half, or 26 and a half, and it's still unsolved. That's hard. It's hard to something to explain as well. Rose says, so the truck in crime won't be found easily. Well, the truck was found easily. It was sitting right there in the lot. Now, you would think they would know that the truck had bullet holes in it. You would think they would know that it had a blood stain and everything. They still left the truck there, but they took the cars. And I don't know. There's no information anywhere about any DNA or anything being found in the cars. Once again, you have to remember, you start driving other people's cars, that's a better chance that you're going to leave something behind that you shouldn't. And it's going to connect you to the crime. They took the cars anyway. So let me do this. So the 3 came back from a move. There's some kind of shootout. The men's cars are driven away. Bodies also taken away. That is the odd part. Why would they do that? Then the truck was moved in and out several times. Don't want to think that. So what is the additional information? Hello, Lisa. Am I late? Yes, you are late. Very, very late, Lisa. Yeah, late. Late, go stand in the corner. So what are some additional things that would help us analyze this better otherwise than just knowing exactly what happened? What are some information after going through this that would help? Who knew the schedule that day? Who knew that Paul and at least Lorenzo would be going on a move that day and would be coming back? Remember, it's a weekend. That would be helpful. What would also be helpful? Did Paul have those cars towed? Were those people checked out? Why did he have them towed? Did he mention, of course, somebody's, stated, well, it had everything to do with that. Well, if that was that, wouldn't this have been solved by now? It hasn't been. So I'd like to know specifically, if it was that just a story or is it real? Did he ever really have cars towed? Well, whose cars were they? What was the problem? And also, if he was renting a parking space to drug dealers, as his girlfriend stated, why would he be doing that? Was he involved in drugs too? Maybe this then it would explain everything. Had Paul, I guess he had, I have had Paul mentioned having any trouble with anybody. I guess he had. If the girlfriend's going to say that he was with these people, not paying parking space rent or whatever that would be, I guess that sounds like trouble, but is it real? We have to remember this is coming from somebody who Paul allegedly said he was getting ready to kick out of his life. Can this person be believed? No. Why would Paul bring his daughter into a bad situation? Well, this very well could have been surprise. But if he was having problems with somebody to the point as maybe we think he changed the lock, what is he doing bringing his daughter into this? Did he not fully realize the gravity of the situation? I guess that's possible. What's Lorenzo? The guy we haven't talked about here is Lorenzo. Remember, he's missing too, most likely murdered. Well, what's his background? What's up with him? Maybe it had something to do with him and not with Paul and Paul's daughter as well. I'd like to know a lot more about Lorenzo. And then, as I've already said, if we're going to hear about this truck going in and out and back and forth and everything, well, was anything stolen? I know the cars were taken. Their cars were taken. I guess that's stolen. But they were found, I guess, in running condition, not vandalized or parted out or anything. And I guess they were easy to find. They weren't in a river anywhere. So that's a big question mark. So was anything stolen? So I think if we knew all of that, this would certainly bring these disappearances, probably their deaths, into a much clearer focus. And we, me as the resident expert, it would be a lot easier to make a really, really firm prediction on it. At this point, I think we have a good general handle of the facts. It's hard to understand why this happened and really what the motivation was, despite Paul allegedly, complaining about people. We're getting this third hand from somebody who might not be trustworthy. We could still be open to the idea that it had something to do with Lorenzo, or it had something to do with Paul, or did they come back and happen upon the place getting robbed in progress or something? Maybe it was just completely a random thing, had nothing to do with, it was stranger on stranger crime, like I guess like Wilmer committed on those 4 murder victims in Virginia back in the 80s. So let's see what everybody's saying, and I will start wrapping this up. Rockford says, yeah, quite a coincidence. Yeah, Pat Brown. She did her episode about a month ago. It will be the 20th year anniversary on the murder on 2/7. You have really a fair amount of case overlap for what it's worth. That's really weird because I have no idea. I'm pretty sure that I've never watched anything on that channel. So is it a coincidence, Rockford, or is that person following what I'm doing? Because I'm surely not following what she's doing. As everybody knows, I just blinders. Brian, someone had to have known their schedule on coming back. Yeah, that would be, who would have known that, Brian? I agree with it. It seems probable, but not 100%. He might not known what have happened. Yeah, if he took his daughter, Rose, that's possible. It's just weird. Of course, who am I to talk? I've never been a single dad, but you get your weekend. Maybe you just need to make the best of it. You figure, you know what? I have to do this move. And if I cancel, then, I'm not going to see my daughter for another 2 weeks. And maybe this will be held against me the next time we work out custody arrangements and everything. You're kind of backed into a corner. And he probably said, well, I got to do this move. Well, hey, Sarah, guess what? You're going to for a ride in a truck today. I don't know. Brian says, still don't understand the moving of the bodies. The facts presented as they are, I don't either, Brian. D says, I can't find the lady. You mean Pat Brown, D? Is that what you mean? All right, my analysis. Even though Paul was speaking badly of the woman in his life, this does not sound like this something that had to do with custody or relationship. Surely, with the daughter being there, if this was a custody thing, they would not want to put the daughter in harm's way. Surely not. Yet we know she was harmed because in the blood stain, her blood was mixed with her father's. Very bad, very sad. A child getting caught up in what was surely adult misbehavior. So, sometimes we might go in that direction, given that he was complaining and everything. I just don't think that is on the table at all. Zero. What's also interesting to me is people saw the trucks, I guess, driving in and out, but they didn't hear shots, even though there were multiple shots. There were multiple bullet holes in the side of the truck. Seemingly nobody heard anything. And you should know, well, they used the silencer. Silencers are not like they are in the movies. I go into the gun range, a little bit, and gunshots are loud. And even from far away, of course, and if it's a rifle, it's really, really, really loud. And suppressors or silencers help a little bit, but I'm telling you, unless it's like a 22 with a subsonic round or something, and it's really, really high-end silencer, you don't even want to be firing a regular pistol with a silencer without ear protection. Now, it depends on the guns and everything, but still, gunshots are loud. Even if there were silencers being loud or on the guns, it's still loud. So they saw the trucks, didn't hear any shots, I guess. That catches. It's hard to understand. Were these executions? Doesn't sound like it. It sounds like if there was scalp inside the truck, it sounds like they were sitting in the truck and got shot. So the scalp info is horrible. So they took the bodies, but they did no cleanup. It's the idea is they took the ramp off the back. I guess there were straps, all that stuff that you get when you rent a moving van. There's blankets and straps and everything. All that stuff was missing. So the thought is that whoever did this used the ramp to carry them, but, and wrap them up with and maybe throw them into a lake or something. That is really, really sophisticated. And I guess it's something that they would have had to have thought of in the moment. It's really, this doesn't, I got to admit, this doesn't sound like drug dealers to me. Drug dealers are all about drive-by shootings and boom, 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 and they're gone. This was fairly sophisticated. There was some thought that went into this, at least after the fact. So a different lock. I think that Brian is correct. I think that if he were having problems, that would be one way to stop it, with a different lock. People show up, they can't get their vehicles, they can't do something, they get ticked off, certainly. Yeah, and it really would be weird if the killers brought a new lock. That would certainly be something. And we have to remember there was certainly a lot of police mistakes. Not noticing the truck and the until a week later, and somebody had to crawl over the fence to do it. I mean, a complete botch job. Complete. In fact, we could say maybe that's why none of this has been solved. But it could be, it very well could be on the fringes, be random. They're gone. Somebody sees them leave. Oh, it's a building. Oh, it's a business. We're going to go in here and see what we can take. They climb over the fence. They're in there. They get back. Paul, Lorenzo, and Sarah get back. They go in there. Oh my, look at this. Somebody's ripping the place off. And this shootout, this execution style thing occurs. But I am open to something else. And of course, this does have to do with moving, and we know this happens sometimes. And of course, it's shady. How about all these moving companies that move people and then don't bring their stuff to the destination until the moving company gets paid more money? That happens. In fact, now that she is deceased, I will tell you, remember Iris? She was she's the sister of Brenda Condon, who went missing in Pennsylvania. Remember, she was the guest some years ago. She moved to Florida. And you should know, I think I already announced this a while ago, Iris died of pancreatic cancer. I spoke to her in a few months, and she told me on that phone call that she had it. I was really stunned. But when she moved to Florida from Pennsylvania, she got screwed over like that. She thought she hired a reputable moving company. Yeah, they brought the stuff to Florida, but they wanted additional money to take the stuff off the truck. God rest Iris' soul, but she told me about that. So might we be talking about a situation like this, that did Paul, in having this moving company stoke the fires of somebody because he did something like this? Wouldn't shock me, because I know it happens. You know, me, every time I've moved, I move my own stuff. So I'm open to that. You know, I don't know if I would call it my necessarily overt best guess, but moving companies do this, and people get pissed off. You know, did somebody, you know, they didn't want to pay or something. But would there not be paperwork to that effect? But you have access to the building, you can just make it all disappear. You know, especially if he doesn't have a computer. Maybe a computer got stolen, but I didn't hear anything about anything being stolen. I also say, my analysis, this seems like 3 murders that should have been easy to solve, but the police botched it. And because we have to start thinking, if it's not random, if this did have something to do with Paul or Lorenzo, then how many people could have had a beef with them? It would be a small circle of people, yet this is all still unsolved. So let me see what everybody's saying. We're about here till the end of the, can't find the lady. Pat Brown is, Pat Brown. All right. I don't know what to tell you, D. G Sin says, trace evidence covered it. I'm familiar with the case very much looking forward to your take. Well, this is my take tonight. That's all you get for tonight. Rockford, it seems like drug dealers is a leading theory when people have no idea what happened. Recall the Short family murders in Virginia. The family was in the moving business too. Yeah. I might have to seek that Pat Brown. Rockford, you maybe you can listen. No offense, but maybe you can give me the highlights or something if you do that for me. But that's all I got. It does seem to me this, I could believe that it was something having to do with rental area on this, on this property, spaces, parking spaces, garage spaces, or whatever. And they weren't paying, and people were going in there. So he said, I'm going to change the locks. They show up. They can't get in. They're waiting. Lorenzo, Sarah, and Paul come back. Boom, boom, boom. Everybody's dead. What's hard to understand is the taking of the bodies and everything else. And, it does, given I'm a disappearance guy, it does make me think that maybe there was more to it than just a bill dispute. Of course, thank you, Rockford. Yeah, all right, Bill Ryan's getting out of there. So that's all I got for that. Most likely having something to do with the business, but that takes a lot of different forms, and to a much lesser extent, this could have been some sort of random crime. Somebody caught in the act, a group caught in the act. And, they just came back at the wrong time. If they come back maybe a half hour later, none of this happens. Maybe. So that's all I got for that. Maybe once again, if anybody in Paul's family, I can reach out to them. Maybe I'll put that on my list of things to do. But what we're going to be doing this Friday, so excited. I'm having somebody on who has already appeared on Unfound. But I thought it was time to have this guy on again. It's been over 9 years. So we're going back to the first few episodes of Unfound. Way back then, I had the nobody guy, Tad DeBias, on, former federal prosecutor, who now is a consultant when state prosecutors, city prosecutors want to try somebody for murder, but there's no body. And of course, that's right up our alley here at Unfound. Well, I interviewed him way back when I was a newbie, and I'm going to interview him again tomorrow night. And now that I have 9 years of experience, I have a better base on which to pick his brain, and he knows it's coming. I sent him an outline of what I want to talk about. We're going to do that interview tomorrow night. So you can start looking him up. His name is Tad DeBias, D-I-B-I-A-C-E. He is known as the nobody guy, specializes in the prosecution of murder cases when there are no bodies left behind. Really looking forward to that. So that's going to be this Friday, but working on many disappearances, and we'll get back to that the Friday after. I guess we'll be well into February at that point. So that's this Friday. Tad DeBias, going to be a very interesting conversation because, I think we need to kind of get back to basics on why a lot of these cases that we really believe are murders never get prosecuted. And what is Tad he's the expert. What does he have to say about all this? And like I said, I think it'll be better this time around, given that I have a lot more experience than I did back then. So that's all I got for tonight. Thank you all for watching and commenting. Please give this show a thumbs up before you leave. Subscribe to the channel. And you'll hear me Friday when I talk to Tad DeBias. Charlie, say hi to the kids for me. Everybody keep your heads on swivels out there. Do not be victims. Good night.